Hello class, today we're going to go ahead and look at section 6.3, dividing polynomials. There's going to be two methods we use to dividing polynomials. The first one will be long division, which we'll look at today, and then the other one will be synthetic division, which we'll look at tomorrow. So let's go ahead and look at the example at the top of our note sheet. Ariana needed 140x squared plus 60x squared inches of paper to make a book jacket 10x inches tall. In figuring the area she needed, she allowed for a front and back flap. If the spine of the book jacket is 2x inches and the front and back of the book jacket are 6x inches, how wide are the front and back flaps? Okay, so there's a nice little drawing here that shows how everything is laid out. Maybe one thing I would notice is that my height or my width is 10x, and if I look at the length, this is a flap, and then I have a flap at the end, and also in between there, not including my flaps. If I take 6x plus 2x plus 6x, that's going to tell me that this is 14x. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm first of all just going to figure out, well, how long is the book? Okay, well, they gave me square inches as area, so this is the area. And then they go ahead and they tell me that it's 10 inches tall, so I'm going to say this is the width. I know that the area of the booklet will be length times width. Well, I know A and I know W, so if I want to figure out the length, I would divide both sides by W. And I know that L is equal to the area divided by the width. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to figure out L. Well, my area in this case is 140x squared plus 60x divided by the width. The width is 10x. Okay, I need to divide. This is dividing two polynomials. Okay, so I want to divide this one. This is easy. I can just go ahead and break it apart. If I'm dividing, it means each piece is being divided by 10x. So I'm going to rewrite it this way. So 140 divided by 10 is 14. X squared divided by x gives me x. Plus, now if I do 60 over 10, if I divide that, I get 6. X over x simplifies to 1. So I just have plus 6. Now if we go ahead and look at what they gave us, they showed that the length is 14x plus 2 flaps. Well, if you notice, we have 14x. Okay, so from above, I have 14x plus 2 flaps. Well, those will cancel, and I will see that the 2 flaps have to be 6 inches. So the 2 flaps have to equal 6 inches. So if I divide both sides by 2, I will see that 1 flap has to be 3 inches. So that answers my problem from above. Okay, so I was using division. So let's go ahead and look at a few more problems. So we're going to divide a polynomial by a monomial. So whenever we're dividing by a monomial, only one, okay, mono means one, what you can go ahead and do is divide each term in the polynomial by the monomial. That's what we did on the problem before. So let's go ahead and do that for example 1. Well, I'm going to rewrite it all out, dividing each part by 4x. Okay, if I go ahead and do this, 4 over 4 simplifies to 1. X to the third divided by x, well, I would subtract 3 minus 1, so I have x squared. 8 divided by 4 is 2. X over x simplifies to 1. Minus 12 divided by 4 is 3. X squared over x will simplify to just x. And then it's always best to write your equation or your simplified answer in what we call standard form. So that would be x squared minus 3x plus 2. And the reason this is in standard form is because it gives a variable with the highest exponent, then the next all the way to the lowest. Okay, don't need to have that to the first power there. So just putting it in order. So there is example 1. Example 2. We are going to go ahead and divide this polynomial by the monomial. So I'm just going to start like I did last time and write each piece being divided by the denominator, which is your monomial. So I have 16a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, divided by 8, a to the 4th, b to the 3rd, plus my next part of my polynomial divided by the monomial minus the last part, all divided by the monomial again. And then I just simplify each part as we have already been working on. So 16 divided by 8 gives me 2. So in my numerator I'll have 2. A to the 5th over a to the 4th, that would be a. And then a to the 3rd over a to the 3rd, that will simplify to just 1. Okay, now I move on to my next part. 12 over 8, that's not evenly divisible, so I would reduce the fraction. So 12 over 8, they're both divisible by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I would go ahead and look at my a's. Okay, I would move it so that I would do 4 minus 3, and in my denominator I would just have a, because 4 minus 3 is 1. And my b, well, I'd move the one with the 3 to the numerator, so 4 minus 3 in this case will give me b in the numerator. So there is my next part. Now moving on to the last part. 20 over 8 is once again not evenly divisible, so I can do the reduced fraction. They're both divisible by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 8 divided by 4 is 2. I would once again, I have a to the 1st over a to the 4th, so I would bring the smaller one to the denominator, so that would give me a to the 4 minus 1, so a to the 3rd. And same thing, move the smaller one to the numerator for the b, so b to the 5th minus 3 gives me b squared. Then I would just go ahead and make sure that everything that can be combined is combined and looks good. Moving on to our last example of a polynomial divided by a monomial. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite each piece. Divided by the monomial, which is 3x y squared minus 15. And now all I need to do is go ahead and simplify. This time, 9 divided by 3, that is 3. Okay, so I have 3, and then I would look, well, 2 minus 1 gives me x. My y, I would have 3 minus 2 gives me 1 again, so I have 3xy for the first part, minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. X over x simplifies to 1. Y squared over y squared simplifies to 1, so minus 5. Plus, now I'm moving on to my third piece. 12 divided by 3 is 4. X over x simplifies to 1. And y to the 3rd over y to the 2nd, I would just write that as y. And then I'm just going to go ahead and write this with the variables, pieces in front, and then the constant at the end. So these are my examples of taking a polynomial divided by a monomial. Now we're going to go ahead and look at a polynomial divided by a binomial. Okay. So what we're doing is a binomial. This part that is being divided right here has 2 pieces. So this is a binomial. Okay. So whenever we're doing that, we need to go ahead and do long division, something that you have done before, but now it involves variables. So let's go ahead and write it out. It's 2x minus 3 is dividing 2x to the 3rd plus 5x squared minus 2x minus 15. Okay. So the way I get started and going here is I look at my first term in my binomial, and I say, well, 2x times what will get me 2x to the 3rd? Well, I know I would have to be x squared. So then what I do is I would take x squared times my binomial. So 2x times x squared will give me 2x to the 3rd. And then negative 3 times x squared gives me negative 3x squared. And then we go ahead. And remember, you always subtract. So it's like multiplying by a negative. Okay, so this gives me 0. Then it's really 5x squared, really plus 3x squared, because I would distribute this negative to each piece. So I would get 8x squared, and then you bring this down, so minus 2x. Now I go ahead and I repeat the process. I would say 2x times what gives me 8x squared? Well, 2 times 4 will give me 8. Okay, and then x times x will give me x squared, so plus 4x. Go ahead and I would have 4x times 2x gives me 8x squared. Okay. 4x times negative 3 gives me negative 12x. And then remember, we always subtract, so I'm just going to go ahead and change my signs essentially, so minus plus. That's 0. This is negative 2x plus 12x, so 10x. And then I would go ahead and bring down that minus 15. Now I go ahead to my last step. I'm going to go ahead and say, well, 2x times what gives me 10x? Well, 2x times 5, so plus 5. So then I would go 2x times 5 is 10x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And we would go ahead and we subtract. So I'm just going to change my signs. This is minus, this is plus, this is 0. So there is no remainder. Okay, so there's no remainder. And so it tells me to divide. My answer is what's left up top here. So it's x squared plus 4x plus 5. That would be what I would get. Okay, let's go ahead and look at example 5. Same thing. We have a polynomial being divided by a binomial. So x plus 4 is 2x to the third plus 6x plus 152. And one thing that you should notice is there is no x squared term. Since there is no x squared term, you should go ahead and put in a placeholder. So plus 0x squared to hold that place. Okay, now we're all set to start. So same idea. I say x times what gives me 2x to the third? Well, 2x squared. Then I would just go ahead and multiply. This gives me 2x to the third plus 8x squared. And then remember, we always subtract, so I'm just going to change my signs. 0. This will give me negative 8x squared plus 6x. Then I'm going to go ahead and move along. Now I say 2x to the 4th, x plus 4. What multiplies x times negative 8x squared? Well, that would be negative 8x. Negative 8x times x gives me negative 8x squared. Negative 8x times 4 gives me negative 32x. And then remember, we always go ahead and change the signs. So multiply it by a negative because we're always subtracting. So 6x plus 32x will give me 38x. And we go ahead and bring down the 152. And we repeat the process. X times 38x. X times what gives me 38x? Well, that's 38. 38 times x, so 38x. And then you do 4 times 38, which is 152. And then I change the signs. So I am left with a remainder of 0. So once again, my solution is what's at the top. So 2x squared minus 8x plus 38. Okay, moving on to example 6. Just a reminder, if you need a break, go ahead, take a break, pause the video while we move on to example 6 and 7 if you need to. Let's go ahead and do 6. So I have 3x plus 1 and 6x to the third plus 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. Don't need any placeholders on this one. Then I go ahead. 3x times what gives me 6x to the third? Well, it's going to be 2x squared. So 2x squared times 3x gives me 6x to the third. 1 times 2x squared is plus 2x squared. Remember, we always subtract. So I have 3x squared minus 2x. 3x times what gives me 3x squared? So that's just x plus x. Subtracting. So this gives me negative 3x, and I bring down the 1, so plus 1. And now I say 3x times what gives me negative 3x? Well, that's going to be negative 1. Negative 1 times 3x gives me negative 3x minus 1. Then remember, our signs go ahead and change. So this is positive, positive. Now careful, this is 0 here, but 1 plus 1 is actually 2. So this is the first case where we have a remainder. So the way you write your solution is you write down what we have above plus my remainder, which is 2 over what is doing the dividing. So 3x plus 1. There is my solution with my remainder. So that is how you would write that out. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you write them down. Ask me tomorrow in class. Example 7. If you look at this one, you will notice that we are going to need a placeholder. So plus 0x to the third minus 17x squared. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and start. So 2x times what gives me 4x to the fourth? Well, 2 times 2 gives me 4. Okay, and x to the third times x will give me x to the fourth. So this gives me 4x to the fourth minus 6x to the third. Remember, we always subtract, so negative, positive. So this gives me 6x to the third minus 17x squared. Now I would say 2x times what gives me 6x to the third? Well, 3 times 2 gives me 6, and then I have x squared would give me times x to the third. So 3x squared times 2x will give me 6x to the third minus 9x squared. Remember, the signs will change. So I have negative 17x squared plus 9x, which will give me negative 8x squared. And I go ahead and bring down 14x. Now I would have 2x times what gives me negative 8x squared. So minus 4x would do that. Okay, so I would have negative 4x times 2x is negative 8x squared. And then negative 4x times negative 3 will be plus 12x. Remember, we always do the opposite sign, though. So this will be positive, negative. So this gives me 2x. Bring down the negative 3. 2x times what gives me 2x? Well, 2x times 1. So plus 1. So it's just 2x minus 3. Change the signs. They both cancel, so my remainder is 0 on this one. So my solution is 2x to the third plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. Okay, those are examples for long division. Now we need to go ahead and look at one word problem. It says the area of a rectangle is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20 square feet. Okay, so this is telling me that this is my area. The length of the rectangle, so this is my length, is 3x minus 4. What is the width of a rectangle? Well, I would think the area of a rectangle is length times width. Okay, and we are trying to figure out the width. So if I want to get w by itself, divide both sides by L. W equals the area divided by the length. So my area is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20 divided by my length, which is 3x minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do this using long division. Okay, well, I would say 3x times what gives me 3x squared times x. So that gives me 3x squared, and then this minus 4x. Remember, it's always subtraction, so change the signs. Negative 19x plus 4x is negative 15x plus 20. 3x times what gives me negative 15x? Well, that's going to give me negative 5 will do that. Negative 5 times 3x is negative 15x. Negative 5 times negative 4 is plus 20. Change the signs, and we get 0, so my remainder is 0. So I get x minus 5, but what is this telling me? Well, if I take my area divided by my length, which I did here, it's going to give me my width. So my width is x minus 5 feet. Okay, so that will be it for our notes today. Please make sure if you have any questions, you write them down and ask me tomorrow in class so that we get any confusion cleared up as soon as possible. Have a nice day, and I will see you tomorrow.